are you?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Hey, I'm doing good. Would you take that deal? If I offered it to you, I would say you can have the whole field. I'm going to take JJ for the championship. What would you do?
Yeah, sure. I'd take the field. I think Keselowski is running so well, so consistent right now. It's like a championship-style run. So I think he's going to be a big factor. So I would be willing to take the field. There's a lot of really good drivers right now.
Yeah, but it's if there's one driver I would take against the field, and I wouldn't, okay, because that's just a sucker bet. But if there's one that I would, it'd be Jimmy Johnson against the field. That's just me.
Tell us, Eric, what you think about going to Bristol on the new old Bristol.
We lose Eric? I thought we lost him.
No. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. I was going to say, usually when we talk about Bristol, we talk about Kyle Busch and his dominating wins and how awesome he is at that track. But unfortunately, he hasn't really been very consistent as of late. So I just mentioned Brad Keselowski a minute ago, and he's won the last two races at Bristol. So he looks like he's the man on this track now. So I think he's definitely the best option. In addition to those two wins, he held an average position of third, which is extremely impressive in each of those victories. So I think the mantle, the torch, whatever you want to call it, I think is a pass from Kyle Busch to Brad Keselowski when it comes to Bristol.
Do you give any credence at all? Do you let it affect any of your picks, the fact that they've reground portions of this racetrack and changed it? We just talked to Patrick Downey, who is the car chief for the number 36 for Dave Blaney, and he basically said that it looks like the top two grooves are gone in that racetrack. Sounds to me like they're not going to be racing three wide as they did in the spring, so it might change things for the way Keselowski's run the last two times. Do you factor that in at all?
Well, I mean, the problem is we really don't know. I mean, it obviously is going to affect every driver on the track, so we don't, we never raced on that surface before, so we really don't know what really changes too much, if anything, in terms of making picks. So really the only thing you can go on is, what's happened in these last couple, over the last couple of years at Bristol and just kind of hope that those trends continue. I don't believe that they have, I haven't looked at the track schedule as of yet, but I don't believe they have an extra testing session, where we get sort of like when they repave tracks in the past. But if they do, that's certainly extremely useful. And at least that we get some track times and things like that to look at. But according to the style of racing,
according to Donahue, they're going to have about 2.5 hours of practice time before they qualify.
Well, that's certainly good. It depends on what day it falls. Like I said, I haven't looked at the schedule. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll have the testing sessions the day before qualifying, which is a great little preview, a great way to kind of cheat.
Yeah.
And try to get some guys who may qualify very well. If that's the case, then you certainly want to do that. If not, you just kind of have to go with your normal patterns.
All right, Eric. So give us a preview of what your Yahoo team's. I mean, we're on Tuesday. We're a long ways away from the race. Give us an idea what your Yahoo team is going to look like as you look at it on Tuesday afternoon before the race.
Right. Well, I mentioned Keselowski. I think he's pretty much the lock in the A-list, although Matt Kenseth has been extremely consistent for several years now at Bristol. He was a runner-up back in March. He had 6 straight top 10s at Bristol, 8 top 10s in his last 9 starts at the site. I did mention Kyle Busch. If you want to go, risk or reward, I think he's a good option as well. But as for me, I think I'm pretty much locked into Keselowski and Kenseth, the 2 Ks on the A-list. The B-list, certainly, Greg Biffle is very good. Junior's been pretty good at Bristol. But going a little bit deeper, Paul Menard, I think, is an interesting pick. 6 top 15s in his last 7 races this season. So he's definitely improving over the rough start he had. Coming off a top 10 at Michigan as well. Finished 10th at Bristol back in March and finished a career best 5th in March of 2011. Jamie Murray, I think, is another kind of a deeper kind of pick. He's finished 12th or better in 6 of the last 8 Bristol races. By all accounts, having a very bad season, but Bristol has been a pretty good track for him. So I like those. Those are the two kind of backup drivers I have on the B list. The two starters, though, that I'm looking at, Martin Truex Jr. finished second and third in the last two Bristol races, so that's extremely impressive stuff. Obviously, he's having a career year. No reason to think that he's going to lose any momentum this week. Ryan Newman, my other guy on the B list. He's been pretty consistent over his last couple races this season. Six straight finishes of 11th or better coming into this race. He's finished 12th or better in 7 of the last 8 Bristol races. So very consistent over the last couple of weeks, even though he's been not really challenging for wins, but he's been quietly very good, and this is one of his better tracks. So certainly a guy you want to consider. The C list, there's not really a lot of wiggle room this week. I think Brian Vickers is the way to go. Issue, though, with him, he kind of burned everybody if you went with him in Watkins Glen, finished dead last, pretty much had an engine failure pretty much as soon as the race started. So took a big hit there. However, back in March, despite not qualifying very well at Bristol, he did end up with the top 5, and he's been pretty darn good, aside from what I mentioned there a second ago at Watkins Glen. So I think he's a pretty safe bet, assuming the equipment holds up. And then Sam Hornish Jr., even though he's been pretty bad, average finish of 31.5, 6 career Bristol starts, but obviously he looks like a completely different kind of driver this season, both in the Nationwide and the Cup Series. So he definitely would be certainly a good pick as well. So those are the two C-list guys. As I mentioned, don't really no one else to really consider on that list this week.
We're talking to Eric McClung, who you can follow on Twitter at Eric McClung and read his fantasy racing prognostications at kffl.com and Fantasy Football Toolbox. And I know Eric is breaking out the NFL fantasy football stuff. I've been reading your tweets for the last couple weeks. I know you're busy, Eric. We're going to put you on the spot. Let's just give us a winner for Bristol this weekend, and we'll see if you're right.
I got to take Keselowski. I just think that he'll make it 3 in a row. At the very least, he's a top 5. Worst case scenario, pending a wreck or some sort of equipment problem, I think he's the safest thing to a lock this week for a top 5, and certainly going to challenge for a win. So no reason to deviate from that.
All right, he's Eric McClung. You can follow him on Twitter at Eric McClung. Read his fantasy football predictions and fantasy racing predictions and fantasy golf predictions at kffl.com and fantasyfootballtoolbox.com. Eric, thanks a lot again for the week, for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Good luck with your picks.
All right, anytime.
All right, Eric McClung. So